Great. Welcome everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the South Downs National Park Authority. My name is Vanessa Rowlands and I'm going to be chairing today's meeting. I'd just like to remind members that you have a primary responsibility for ensuring that the authority furthers the national park purposes and duty. Members regard themselves first and foremost as members of the authority and will act in the best interests of the authority and of the park, rather than as representatives of their appointing authority or any interest groups. The meeting is being webcast by the National Park Authority and will be available for subsequent online viewing. And by coming into the meeting room, you are considered to have given your consent to be filmed or recorded, and for the possible use of images and sound recordings for webcasting and or training purposes. And for the benefit of those observing the meeting, members of the authority are identified by white nameplates, South Downs officers by orange nameplates, and guests by green nameplates. And to minimise disruption, can I ask you to switch off your mobile phones, or at least to silent? I just want to say to everybody that I'm going to try and factor in some regular breaks and try and not go for like 2.5 hours without moving, because some people really do need to get up and move about a little bit. So I'm just saying that. And also something that I do remind us about is just remember who isn't sitting around this table that we need to think about. Some of our policies and decisions affect those people. So thank you. Okay, I'm going to crack on. Item number 1, apologies for absence. I'm going to ask Richard Fryer if you could let us know those, please.
We've received apologies for absence from John Cross, Mark Fairweather, Teresa Fowler, Gary Marsh, Robert McCatter, and Mark Potter.
Great, thank you. Item number 2, declaration of interests. So I'm going to ask members if you wish to declare an interest on any item on the agenda, but I'm just going to start off by item 11 on the agenda, which is devolution and local government reorganisation. Why don't we all, whoever needs to do it, let's all put our hands up together now, who feels they've got a declaration on that item, and then we can do the other items if there's some extra. So hands up for anyone who wants to declare an interest on item 11. I would think it's most local authority members. Yeah. 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 We had Chris. Yeah, just have you got that? Yes, you did, yeah. Yeah, okay. Thanks ever so much. So has anyone got an declaration on any other agenda item that they'd like to declare? No. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Item number 3, the minutes of previous meetings held on the 8th of July and the 1st of September. And I just want to know if there's any point of accuracy in any of these minutes. And just actually what I'll do is go through them and go page number by page number, if that's all right. And I'll just go through both of them that way. So I've got, so page number 5, page number 6, page number 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then page 13, 14. Yep, okay. I will take those and I'll sign those at the end of this meeting. Great. So, item number 4, urgent item. Have we got any urgent items? No. And item 5, public participation, no. Okay, item number 8. Is that right? Hold on a second, that's not right. 5 to 8, that's not right. Item 6, my favourite item, need for part 2 exclusion of the press and public. So there is some exempt information in agenda item 16 in the minutes from one of the meetings in agenda item 16. Does anyone have a point of accuracy they'd like to bring up in those part 2 minutes? No, okay. Richard, you don't have to say your bit, sorry. Okay, we don't have to go into part 2, great. Item number 7, authority chair update. You've got that report in your pack. And I don't know if anyone wants to question anything or ask anything about that. No? Are you all right, Andrew? Can you find it? Okay, well, can I see a show of hands just to note that report, please? Brilliant, thank you. Everybody, yeah, great. Okay, item number 8, sorry. Chief Exec Progress Report. I'm going to ask Sean to do this, thank you.
Okay, I'll get the microphone right. You've had a chance to look at the report. I think just a point on the introduction, I'm keen really to try and give you a sense of the dynamic environment that we're currently operating in and how we're sort of trying to manage that, but also hopefully to reassure that as an authority, I feel that we're responding incredibly well, and it is at times uncomfortable, but actually I think this idea that we need to be able to flex as we go along is going to be really, really important over the next, 1, 2, 3 years particularly, as we go through devolution, as some new legislation comes in, whether that's the planning and infrastructure bill, whether we have another sort of nature-related bill coming through. So you will see that we're sort of shifting and changing a little bit. We've already seen some of that happen over the last year, but it feels like that we're able to react well, but also, to a large degree, also try and own that narrative and step forward. Other than that, I commend the report to you. There are, as always, this is my second one where we're trying to put more measurement into it. That will continue. We may introduce some measurements around planning in the near future as well, which hopefully allows you to see how we're doing. We're doing well. There's a couple of areas where we can always do better, but I will leave it there and allow for any questions.
Great. Thank you, Sean. Chris, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. Very good. Can I just comment on 2.5, please? We all know we live in critical times with funding for local authorities, for organisations such as ourselves. The budget lies ahead at the end of November. Be more pressure on the public finances. So I think I'm very encouraged to see that we have this revenue generating exercise. I was talking informally to Mark Alden and Chris Hannon before I came in here earlier. They were telling me, they were updating me on where the authority is and where their department of authority is generating revenue, what they're getting, who they're talking to, how they are developing the commercial side, can we say the entrepreneurial side, which I think is very positive and very constructive. And it was mentioned, it was in the report today about being a responsibility, giving more scope and more opportunity for commercial activity and bringing in more funding to underpin what comes from the grant. And we all know that the grant is under pressure and where it might go to, and that's all recognised in the report by the Chief Executive. So as somebody who runs a business and who's worked with the Thrive team, which is now being rebranded, I understand, I'm really encouraged to see this being working hard and getting very, very good results. I was also told, in comparison to other national parks, we are way ahead, which I think is very, very good as well. So the only way is up. Very, very positive. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Do I have it? I've got Andrew. Yeah, Andrew.
Yes, thank you. I was also going to raise a question allied to Para 2.5 and the fact that we are now a responsible body. Do I understand that whilst that gives us extra powers, it doesn't give us the power of a humble parish council under their power of competence? It isn't as great. And I was just thinking, what advantage stroke disadvantage is that? Because obviously the maximum power we have to be able to be flexible is a very important thing, especially as the point that Chris has just made. My second question, would you like that first or second? Or before that is addressed, or would you like it now?
Let's have it now.
Okay, well, it is. I've been trying to find a handle to connect it to throughout this agenda, but it is really that for over 2 years now, we've Midhurst has suffered the blight of the angel not being having anything done to it. And I wondered if there's anything that can be reported that gives us any indication of movement in that area.
Thanks, Andrew.
I'm going to ask Tim to come back on the Angel, but first, I think your question was, what's the difference between being a responsible body and having the general power of competence? Is that right? Sort of, yes, effectively. So this is not the general power of competence, is the first thing, and it does sort of different things. The general power of competence, we continue to, we aren't allowed to lobby, so we continue to message strongly that we would like this as soon as possible. We are in conversation with DEFRA, as we have been for a while, in terms of the wording of what an amendment would be to a suitable legislative vehicle that would give us the general power of competence. And we are always saying that we would like to see this in the next, the next possible opportunity. My personal view is that it fits very nicely with the devolution bill that is about to come through Parliament, but that will be for central government to decide. But I might ask James to talk us through a little bit what being a responsible body means for us in this context.
Hello, everyone. I'm conscious there is expertise within our membership as well, so please add if you wish to. But a conservation covenant serves two purposes, really. It advances our conservation work in that we can put covenants on areas of land or perhaps even archaeological features to protect them for the long term. And that is a piece of work we're undertaking now to understand how and when we might want to do that. In the more immediate future, what it allows us to do is operate as we have been in the park, protecting land, habitat banks, but do that actually outside the planning system and also to some degree outside our boundary, and working very closely with Richard here because it is on the edge of our powers, but it does allow us, to example, to operate in other national parks. And that's something we'd have to consider carefully and obviously within our family of protected landscapes, but there are other opportunities there which could bring income generation opportunities.
Thanks, James. I was just going to say we have got an item on the agenda item 12, to go into this a bit more, haven't we? But yeah, but Tim, for you.
Thank you. Angel Hotel. Members will be aware we've worked closely over a period of time, 2 years now, with Chichester and West Sussex, providing both financial support and other support. In terms of recent movements, we've had some return of the income that we provided, so that's positive, and the scaffolding is now slowly but surely being owned and managed by the relevant parties rather than ourselves and Chichester. And I do have to be a little bit careful here, and the timing is spot on, Andrew. We have had our first positive pre-application discussion concerning the whole site with one of the owners who's looking to do a comprehensive scheme. At this stage, you'll understand I really can't say more, but that's literally this week that has happened.
Great, thank you so much. I've got Stephen.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question in relation to paragraphs 3.5 to 3.8, HLT 4s and 5, carbon reduction and carbon footprints. I think I've asked this before, but it's a moving process, and I'm not sure I've really got to the bottom of what's in scope within the carbon reduction footprint. Is it our emissions as an organisation, or does it encompass external carbon emissions from things like construction, transportation, industry? And if so, how do we tackle the outside stuff? Thanks.
Thank you.
So we've got two targets, one for the authority and one for the park. The one for the authority includes all the stuff that we generate. I can't remember what they're called, Section 2, Section 3, I'm not sure if even that's the right terminology. But essentially, we weren't measuring previously the supply chain elements of carbon. Now we are. So our target now includes, or at least our measurement of our carbon footprint includes those elements for the authority. For the park as a whole, it's all the activity that happens in the park and all related to it. And we have a contract with I think it's Small World who do an analysis every year let us know where we are. And that's the same with every national park. And we've made a commitment as national parks as a whole, as part of the UN's Race to Zero initiative. I think we were the first national parks globally to do so. So we're all committed to that. We've got a system of monitoring it. Obviously, we don't control what everybody does, but we do have some influence over how many trees are planted, how the land is managed. We can support through the planning system, how buildings are built or how they're converted, and we can support all of that. So there's a whole sort of range of activities that we engage in to try and change that. And ultimately, what we'd like to be able to do is have the kind of relationships with highways agencies which will allow us also to have some influence over public transport. But that's part of the PMP, the Partnership Management Plan, and part of us setting that ambition really high.
Thank you. Oh, Stephen, yeah, you wanted to come back, and then other Stephen.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. So are we envisaging at some point we'll have a strategy and an action plan perhaps for those external pressure points that we can push?
We do already, but it's something that I want us to really improve on, particularly as we go into the next phase of the Partnership Management Plan with our delivery partners. For us as an authority, we do, but we need to put more focus on that because we really need to sort of accelerate what we're doing, and that's something that I'm personally committed to.
Great, thank you. Stephen, other Stephen.
I see from paragraph 3.3 that there's 4 out of 41 chalk grassland sites are not in a favourable condition. Well, sorry, only 4 are in a favourable condition. Do we have a strategy for handling this and talking to the landowners? Are we just picking them off one by one, or is there an overall strategy in order to get these up to a much better state?
Mm-hmm. Laura, do you want to come on that? I mean, I can come back to you on that. Yeah. I mean, obviously the only chalk grassland that we have direct control over is Seven Sisters, and that is in favourable condition as far as I know. So we last checked, which is good. A lot of this is about the work that we do working with landowners and farmers, and so we are, as part of the PMP, again, we've really put a big emphasis on how we support farmers and how we support landowners in delivering for nature. It's something that we want to see if we can expand and strengthen. We're talking to DEFRA at the moment about a pilot scheme where they're looking at where there's more place-based approaches where you can provide more and stronger advice. So we're going to see how we can pursue that with also waiting for the new agri-environment schemes to come through. So the best way we can do that at the moment is to work with those landowners and strengthen our advice and specifically look at those SSIs. In parallel to that, there's a conversation with Natural England looking at the viability of some SSIs and also how they are shifting in terms of what they deliver based on the climate. And that's something also that we have to take into account, because it could be that for certain sites, trying to get to a favourable actually feels like we're going against, what is viable and might not be the best value for money. So all of that is part of a sort of strategic look at how we're trying to manage those habitats.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a question they'd like to ask? No. Well, I just wanted to just highlight 2.6 about what has been going on with various bills in Parliament, and just this, I don't know if everybody saw recently this sort of potential threat to our Section 245 duty, and just to say how we think that has gone away for the moment. And I just wanted to say how what a lovely thing it was that the whole sector came together behind national parks and national landscapes. And there was this incredible letter that the Campaign for National Parks got together last week. Was it last week or the week before, that went to Keir Starmer with over 200?
Last week.
Last week. God, I know, it's just... and it's just it was just really great to see the support for protected landscapes from right across the sector, and we saw that off, which was good, because at the Labour Party conference they had this big board that was going on about how national parks were part of the national renewal and the setting up of, the Labour heritage and legacy and stuff like that, and so to potentially sort of damage those would have looked not great. So we're really pleased about that. So I just wanted to mention that. Yeah, thank you. So, members, can I see a show of hands to go with the recommendation, which, do we put recommendations on screens or? Okay. Yeah, yeah. Oh, okay.
We have a technical issue.
Oh my gosh. It's like in the old days when you had to get across the room to press over the telly, wasn't it? Remember? I'm not that old, actually. I don't actually remember that. Okay. Recommendation in front of you. Can I see a show of hands for that, please? Is that everybody? Yes. Thank you so much. Item number 9, Downs to the Sea update. And so I'm really delighted that Natasha Brix-Yono is here to talk us through this project. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me all right? Good.
Yeah.
So I'm Natasha Brix-Yono. I'm the Downs to the Sea project manager. And as you may have guessed, I'm going to tell you a bit about Downs to the Sea. So I'm going to tell you what it is, what we want to do, and what we have already done at this point. So Downs to the Sea is a National Lottery Heritage-funded partnership project. So it's led by the South Downs National Park Trust, and it's in partnership with the authority, with the RSPB, with Brighton and Hove County Council, with Writing and Legacy, and with the Western Sussex Rivers Trust. The project is all about water, recovery and resilience, and we've axed around 2 main strains. So one of them is water in the landscape. So by that, we're focusing on nature recovery through wetland improvements and pond creation, restoration, for example. So to improve the recovery and the resilience of the aquatic habitat through the pressures they're already on, but also the growing pressures of climate change on them. And then the second axe is water in people's lives. So that's where we kind of address the connectiveness of people through engagement activities so they can benefit from the health and well-being benefits of what we call the blue space, as well as developing people's skills and their understanding of the water environment. This is just a nice infographic that kind of shows the vision of the project. Basically, what you can see is a good diversity, biodiversity, different animals, all type of wetland habitats, so ponds, rivers, and all kind of people doing all kind of activities outside. So that's why we like to show it, and that's what this project is aiming to contribute to. This is kind of just an overview of the timeline of the project. So it's a 3-year project. We started earlier this year, so we got another 2.5 years to deliver it. But this is kind of just to show all the work in preparation for this project, so the different EOI submitted, bids prepared, and a 1.5 years of development phase. And also here to really acknowledge the work of all the fundraising team at every point where the project wasn't funded, which is everything not in blue. So going to give you an overview of what the different outcomes of the projects are. So basically, better water management, more freshwater habitat, public awareness, inclusive access, improved well-being, new skills, stronger partnership, and a focus on diversity and inclusion. That is just to show you that this project does fit between the protected landscape targets and general outcomes, so no need to go into the details. I'm sure you'll have the slides later. And this is also to show you that it fits right in the middle of the National Park's high targets of nature recovery, climate action, and National Parks for all. So now I'm going to go a bit into the detail, like the activities and what we're going to do. So starting with the capital work. So it's quite interesting that you just had a mention of the condition assessment. So some of the work we're doing is actually to try to prevent some of the particularly reserves that have been designated internationally to stay unfavorable or continue to decline. So that's why we're trying to stop. So first at Poolborough Brooks, so on what we call the North Brooks and the South Brooks, we're doing some work to install some water control structures, so sluices and pipe and dam. I'm very pleased to show you some of the work actually done. So you go sluices on the top left, in the middle a new pipe and dam installed, and on the right an access track. it seems like small work, but in terms of managing the water in the reserve, it's going to make all the difference. And what do we mean by that is that at the moment, the water floods on the reserves and it goes out very quickly, and that is not the most optimal for the different species, like the lapwing or the red shank that you can find there. So what the RSPB wants to do, it's actually to keep the water on site a bit longer after the winter, so it creates muddy edges where the birds can feed, and get the water a bit faster out of the reserve when you start the grazing conservation on it. So you probably won't see this work if you're going to the reserve, but it's very important for their management. Amberley Brook, so we haven't started yet, but there what is really important is the stocking density, so that means basically the number of cattle on site. There's a certain numbers that Natural England is expecting to have, and the site at the moment just cannot accommodate these cattle. So most of the work we're going to do is mostly about putting gates, crossing points, and we are managing the ditches, so both to manage the fields better, but also for the rare little ramshorn snails that is there. So ditches management and grazing infrastructure is going to be most of the work being done there, and that's really important because conservation grazing is what creates this different height of grass swards, which a different species of birds needs to be properly nesting and breeding in this kind of habitats. Then at Pagham Harbour, so under Chichester, there's a little area called Ferry Pool, which we now want to call Ferry Wetlands. So we're just actually finishing the work, I think, installing a solar pump today and tomorrow. But what we've done here, by we I mean the partnership and the RSPB and the contractors, is we've done a lot of groundwork. So the biggest problem here is, you may be aware that there's a little part at the bottom of the field that is called Ferry Pool, which is actually a marine conservation zone, which has a little bit of saline water in it. And the groundwork we did is kind of to help managing the water and the salinity levels. So basically, when it gets too dry, the water is hypersaline, which is not ideal for the invertebrates that you found here, like the lagoon sand shrimp or the lagoon cockle. And when it's too wet, the water doesn't have enough salt in it. So we just basically worked on to follow the natural resources and basically have a pool of the right level of salinity water at the south and a good level of fresh water. So the pump I was mentioned is going to be helping that by taking water from the ditch at the bottom and either put more or not. So we got the right salinity levels for this rare species for which this area is designated. On top of that, we're working a little bit on predation reduction. So we're taking off some fence posts that raptors like to use to predate on chicks. And we're going to do, and that's going to be next year, put the predator exclusion fence around the field, because this could be really an optimal breeding field for some rare species there. As part of the project, so we're going to work on a number of ponds restoration and creation. So first, past you may have heard about Ponds for Ponds, which technically was piloted through the development phase of Downs to the Sea. And we're continuing to support it to make sure all the processes are in place so the scheme can continue post-project and hopefully much longer after. But also directly through the project, we recruited a pond and engagement ranger who's going to lead on the delivery of 5 to 7 ponds restoration and creation. What we're looking there is for a diversity of methodology, context, and basically lessons we can learn to inform all the ponds restoration and creation that the park and the trust will want to do in the future. So we've got a very nice example of Chantry Hill Pond restored through Ponds for Ponds in the last 2 years. And another pond restoration which is quite significant is Farmer Pond. So we're working with Brighton and Hove County Council. So Farmer Pond is just above Brighton and slightly still in the park. So it's a very large village pond, and you can see from the photos here, not in a great state. It's massively silted, it's fed by road runoff, so we've got a big capital work program there to reduce the silt, arrange the banks, take some trees off to make sure the water and the pond is of better quality, so both for biodiversity, but also obviously for all the people living around there. And also on capital work, we're working on Himalayan balsam. So through the project is supporting the development of the May and balsam removal part of what we call the River Guardian. So it is led by one of our ranger, and the aim is to, on the long term, remove May and balsam through a program of regular management along the River Rother. So through Dance the Sea, we're supporting the start of that. So connecting landowners to local community groups of parish council to take ownership of little stretch of the river, to give them training and equipment, just to get them started. And then same again, we're thinking legacy there, they can continue well after the project. So this is just a map to kind of show you a little bit where all these things I mentioned are taking place. So what you can see in the middle is the Arran and Western Sussex catchment, so where the water is. All the blue dots are the ponds that are being done through Ponds for Ponds, through the project. And in green and red shows you the other project, like Discovering Dew Pond or Changing Chalk, just to show the complementarity. Because what I didn't mention with the pond is that we're trying to complement existing projects. There's been a lot of dew pond restorations done in the eastern part of the park, while we're focusing more on making work in West Sussex and Hampshire. So Falmer Pond is in black, and you can see the 2 RSPB reserve represented by the lovely little lapwing silhouettes. And as I mentioned, there's a second axe of this project. So this was the water in the landscape, and we also got a big part of this project is water in people's life. So where we connect people with the natural heritage, health and well-being. So how do we do that? So the Western Sussex Rivers Trust has recruited 2 new members of staff, which we call water champions. So one of them is working primarily with parish council and community groups. So there's a nice link here with the Himalayan Balsam, where the Rivers Trust and the SDNPA are working jointly in partnership again to get these groups linked to do this capital work. And the other one, Kathy, is working with local schools and young people, so attending school assemblies, organizing school visits to give young people a chance to enjoy their wet environment and awareness. So they worked with priority schools, decided on which one were close to rivers, and based on the numbers of free meals dedicated. So just raising awareness, education, and basically giving advice to all the parish council to take ownership and better manage the wet environment in their land. Writing a legacy, so is using the existing network of Black and people of color artists. So they are first and foremost advising the project board on inclusivity and diversity. They also created a work of bursaries and commissions, so offering artists opportunity to go and see the water in South Downs, get inspired and create pieces of art, which will be culminating in a big showcase event at the end. They're offering mentoring sessions, they're offering creative water days, and guided walks. So they've also recruited a community panel, which is going to be the people involved with the project board and making sure that we identify and potentially address the different barriers people feel to come into the landscape. Then in terms of health and well-being, this is led by Kate Drake, which is the South Downs National Park Health and Well-being Officer. She has developed a full program of health and well-being activities, so with targeted audience. So first she's doing staff sessions with organizations that could be referring their users, so like Mind, early help, early psychosis. They're organizing creative water days, so taking some of these groups, same again, outside, enjoying, creating, getting on walks. It's just about giving people opportunities. It's going to be a self-sensory tray created near the Pulborough Brooks Reserve, and then also a longer-term program with people coming more regularly over the terms of the project and see the improvement. So a bit like the Timescape previous program you may have seen. And then this is a bit of a mix between capital work and people's life, because we had to do some physical work to make this place more accessible. So you may recognize it. It's at the Pulborough Brooks Visitor Centre, the pond next door, called Upperton's Pond. This work was finished before March and was also supported by an Access is Protected Landscape grant. So what we've done there is basically expanding the spaces around the pond to allow people with trampers or buggies to enjoy this space. We created a new footpath along the pond at the bottom, which allows people, all kind of people, to enjoy the views, hence the lovely name Window to the Wetland, access to the second pond. We've also added some benches, and the owl in the middle is a fixed point photography post for people to engage with nature. So if you got a chance, go and see it. It's very nice. And then Falmer Pond, mentioned the actual physical restoration, but we're also working there to engage with the local community. So we offer some community days to talk about the restoration. The local ranger is organizing bat walks, and also we're working there to create a local volunteer group, so the Friends of Falmer Pond, to get them constituted and eventually take on the long-term management of the pond. So we're doing a big reset with the capital work, and then on the long term, we hope it will be managed by a local group of volunteers there. And then what the South Down is doing about ponds, all kind of things. So first, we're creating an online hub of information on our website because we found there's a lot of information about ponds, but it's quite hard to find. So we want to put all of that on what is a pond, why is it important, guidance, funding, like being the one-stop shop where people can come and ask about ponds. We're creating some new interpretation and campaigns. You may be familiar with the Take the Lead campaign. We're creating a new movie about the behavior of dogs around waters and rivers. And we're also working with the Bus Museum of Natural History, where they're developing a DuPont permanent exhibition, which will be opening normally next autumn. And also we providing the skills, so it's not on there, but as part of the project, we have recruited apprentices rangers, which have started at the end of September and are with their different teams. And obviously all the training with the volunteers. So that's all about improving skills and knowledge. This is more an acknowledgement to say that projects rely a lot on all of the people delivering it. I didn't have everybody's photos, but just to give you an idea that there's a few members of new staff that's been hired, but we all rely very much on existing member of staff, so the different partners organization, and particularly the South Downs through the MOU between the trust and they're providing us all kind of help in terms of expertise, procurement, comms, and massively fundraising. This is just kind of to give you an idea of the proportion of finance. So the big blue bit is what the National Lottery Heritage Fund has given for the project when made it possible. And the rest is just all kind of match fundings that have been raised by the trust, but also directly by the partners. So you've got a few charities like Sussex Ornithological Society or DPD or Southern Water. There's a few seal bids that you may have approved, so one for Falmer Pond and one for Pulborough Brooks, which are going to help taking the work further, and just all the existing time and volunteer time, which the lottery counts. I was told you may be interested by, this is everything that's gone well, by knowing a little bit maybe of some of the difficulty we've gone through, some challenges. So I think the bigger one is processes, so the processes that we've got here at the park, the processes of the lotteries, the processes from the partners, and trying to find a good common ground between all that to make it work and fit everybody's requirements on time. So that works for reporting, that works for finances, that's been true of procurement as well. Sometimes, the lottery at higher standards than some partners, so we've got to accompany them through this while making sure we also respect our own standards. We also spent a bit of time on obtaining the planning, environmental consents and permissions for some of the capital work. So I'm thinking particularly for the work at Pulborough Brooks and Fay Wetlands, which we've been able to deliver this summer, but we started the consenting and planning work about a couple of years ago. So this has a cost, and obviously definitely something to consider with this kind of project. If it was just a 2.5-year project, you may not be able to fit the full planning and consents timeline in it. So, but somehow we manage. And I think there's also a little bit, as always, of capacities. I mentioned it's great. There's a lot of people in different organizations are existing roles. They're supporting it, which makes sometimes capacity a challenge. There's change of staff, there's sickness, there's all these kind of things that can affect the delivery of the project. And I think one particular point I wanted to mention was in the national park, as I mentioned, the apprentices. We unfortunately don't have any more apprentice coordinator role here, so it's something that the project team has to fill that gap. So yeah, that's it for me. And if you've got any questions.
That was amazing, Natasha. Thank you so much. What an amazing presentation. There was so much in that, wasn't it? Oh, what a brilliant project. And I don't know if some of you can remember when this was going through, James, when you were going through all the different times of getting all the funding, like the first bit, the development funding, and then going to get the actual big chunk. This has been in the pipeline for a long time. So it's just amazing to see it all. And for those who were on the planning committee, and I came to the planning, when was the planning, the planning application that went in for Pulborough Brooks? When was that, Natasha? Was that this year?
13th of March.
This year?
Yes.
Wow, because that was quite tense, that planning meeting, watching you all discuss it and everything like that, and just to see actually the photos of the stuff delivered. I mean, I don't know if any of the planning committee want to kind of comment on that, because you can actually see what you approved. That's very exciting. And for me, this project is so important, because we have to hold on to water in the landscape. We've got a real water problem in the southeast, but that part of kind of the education part and getting people to start talking and understanding how important water is in their lives, and just being part of the conversation is really, really important. So hats off to you all, and so much information in there. I don't know if anyone can remember it all if you were jotting down, but I'm going to go to Janet first, who's got something to say.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to make a comment with regards to the two ladies, I think they were, that are doing the water and the rivers, because I'm very keen that obviously the younger generation, when you get to my age, the younger generation need to be working on the environment and know everything there is. And I just wondered if there was any list available of the education places that they attend to talk to, because in my own particular life, I've got 6 primary schools that are all forest schools and all interested in nature, and so I just wondered if there was a list anywhere that us members can see that say where they go to.
Natasha, do you want to?
So we have a list internally, so I'm sure we can share. We already know where they've been, and we can share where they will be going. I'll try to prepare that and pass it on to you.
Thank you. I've got Andrew and then Stephen.
Yes, thanks. You covered a very wide area of activities, but one thing which I experienced, or rather I didn't experience about 2 weeks ago, is that I was shown around areas of the River Rother, just upstream from Petworth, where there are 2 or 3 weirs. They're not very big weirs, but those weirs are big enough to stop most fish migrating upstream, or if they do, it's with great difficulty. And I wondered if the project has the scope to put in the equivalent of either remove the weirs, which is a very difficult challenge, or as an alternative, put in the equivalent of fish ladders, so that we're keeping the weirs and keeping some people who want them there on side, but at the same time providing the nature part of this, giving it a boost, whereas there's been a lot, of course, about the Purpose 2 side of it. And this I thought would be more of a Purpose 1, and I believe it was in Target. It would probably be covered by Target 1.
Natasha, do you want to take that?
Yes. So obviously, as you noticed, there's quite already a wide range of activities, and we've got some outcomes that have been approved by the lottery. So there's not really a scope to add more to what we're going to do to this project, but I'm very well aware that the Western Sussex Rivers Trust is really keen on this question and is working on that, so I would advise you to maybe mention it to them, but I'm pretty sure they're aware.
Great, thank you. I hope that answers your question, Andrew. Oh, I've got Steve Ridgen, and then, is that Vicky? Yeah.
Thank you, Natasha. That was really inspiring. That was a great presentation. I have a question about the capital projects. Have monies been put aside for maintenance so that once the good work's been done, it sort of doesn't go backwards?
So Not directly, because as I mentioned, a lot of the activities are kind of a reset slash stepping stone for the organizations themselves. So obviously we're making sure that they, like for example, the RSPB on the reserve is committing to a long-term, at least 10-year management plan of the work being done. But the money is not going to come from the lottery. All the actions we're doing, as I said, a reset, stepping stone, and then the organizations are taking ownership of that maintenance, but we're making sure they will.
Brilliant, thank you. Vicky?
Yes, I think it's the same question actually, so you've stolen my thunder a bit, but specifically on Pounds for Ponds, or for the Pounds, the Pounds for Ponds project. Sorry, Heather. So I'll start again. Stephen, slightly miffed that you hit me to the post a little bit. So, but I think I just wanted to elaborate more with Pounds for Ponds, which is an amazing scheme, because they're ephemeral ponds, and I think we used to have 100 or so across the national park, didn't we? Oh no, 1,000 about 100 years ago. And so that's a fun fact that I learned. I came to a volunteer session here a few weeks ago, so I learned that fun fact. And the other fun fact is because they're ephemeral, and if they're not maintained over time, obviously now we've got so few. So my question was, I think, the same, but in terms of the maintenance of those amazing aquatic habitats after 2027 when the funding ceases. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's the same principle with the Ponds for Ponds scheme. There's a landowner agreement giving them that responsibility. I say we're also still learning this kind of piloted. So I know with James and the team, we're considering maybe adding grants for maintenance, where sometimes this maintenance and management has a cost, but obviously we need to think about the process and if that's doable.
Yeah. Thank you. Laura, you wanted to come in?
Tim and I are sharing, so I need to lend over towards Tim. I think two things probably is worth saying. Firstly, that capital funds can't support maintenance. If this is DEFRA capital grant, it's really important for members, I think, to know that we can't use that for maintenance. The second point I wanted to make was quite different, actually. Natasha casually mentioned apprentices in this. And as a byproduct of this, a really important one was about bringing 2 apprentices into the organisation. We actually brought 3 in, and fundamental to this being successful and for us to have these 3 rangers now running around doing great work and learning and starting a career with us has been Natasha's work. So Natasha stepped in, and Daniel bear witness to this because he was part of a difficult meeting where we tried to work through how we were going to achieve this, because everybody was really, really positive and excited and supportive of this. But the work that needs to go on before that, the kind of infrastructure thinking, the training, the development, the liaison with the college, all of this stuff, Natasha has picked up and done. So she has flagged it as what we're going to do next year if we want to carry on doing that. And we do have that in our plans to talk about, but fundamentally she was the reason, and her contribution was the reason why 3 people are now here with us as apprentices. So thank you, Natasha.
That is amazing. Well done. Thank you so much. Do I have another question for Natasha or the team? No, but I just want to say thanks again, Natasha, because this sort of presentation really brings to life the work that we're doing. It's the exciting bit, and we get to see it, and so we really appreciate that. And thank you so much, and good luck.
More than welcome. And then next time we may have actually videos of the work being done.
Oh my gosh, moving images.
If it works.
Yeah. Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Okay, so moving on to item 10, so the annual update of the South Downs National Park communications and engagement work. And I'm going to ask Ruth James to introduce this. And I just want to thank Ruth for bringing this report paper to this meeting, because we did used to do it, Ruth, didn't we, at the sort of AGM meeting? And then it kind of I don't know what happened, but we chatted about it recently, and she was like, I'll bring it back. I'll bring it back. I'll come to the next one. And here she is. So thank you so much. There you go.
No problem, thank you. I'm going to be careful because I have two voices, one very loud and one completely indiscernible whisper, and there's nothing in between. So if I am blowing out your eardrums, please let me know, or being too quiet. That's a hard act to follow, isn't it? But it's fantastic. And Downs to the Sea actually is a really great example of where one team, and Natasha in particular, is leading, but where comms and engagement can also play a key role to help make that happen. So it's, but yeah, definitely a hard act to follow. So what I wanted to do today was just give a brief kind of overview and a reintroduction about what our comms and engagement is all about, and then to talk about what's coming up in terms of that work and what will be coming in front of members in the next few months. So the first thing I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about was how we do communications and engagement. So we are not a marketing communications function. We are not here to sell anything other than happiness, I guess, and love of the national park. We are very much a comms and engagement function, and our role is not just to put information out, but for that information to actually help deliver on our purposes and duty, and also to connect the national park. At its heart, our role and all the work that we do is about connecting people with the national park so that it's a good experience for people, and it's a good experience for the national park. So that's at the heart of everything that we do. On the left there is the ladder of stewardship, and that is really useful. That's from our comms and engagement strategy. That is really useful just to show that we're not just trying to reach people at one particular point or one particular topic. We are constantly trying to move people up that ladder of stewardship. So from awareness of the national park, to engaging with it, to caring with it, to taking action, and then finally to being champions for it. So it's very much not a static piece of work with people. We're constantly looking, and it's a constantly evolving relationship. And on the right, you see it's all about relationship building. It can be very, very tempting for me to come here and sit and talk about the new things we're doing, the new films, the new images, the great reports that we're doing. But the reality is that good communications and engagement is built on relationship building. And there is a huge amount of our work that happens behind the scenes that members will never see. And in fact, most officers, our senior leadership will never see. But that our work really depends on. And a really good example of that is our digital space. We run, so we do all the communications, not just for the National Park Authority, but for the Trust and for Seven Sisters Country Park. We manage 3 websites and 13 social media channels. Social media channels they will eat you alive. It is not about putting out a few nice things. There's constant monitoring and engagement, particularly in the current very nasty external environment that is online. So just to bear that in mind, that there's a lot of, I hate the term BAU, business as usual, but there's a lot of work that we have to keep doing all the time. So that's the reminder. So, we can't always do new. We've got to make sure we're taking care of what we've done before. And comms and engagement can be a really important part of legacy for lots of different projects, including work like Downs to the Sea. So it's important that we make sure we have the space to be able to do that. And the last point I want to make was integrated communication. So what I mean by this is that you may see one particular piece of work, a press release, a video, a photograph, an event. We very, very rarely do something that stands on its own. Every piece of work that we do normally has multiple outlets through multiple channels. So just say we're constantly looking. So what we have on our website and the press work that we do is very closely linked to any events we do and to our social media. So it's a big interconnecting loop, and that's really, really important. So we're getting the maximum benefit from everything we do. So today I thought it would be really useful to give a snapshot. This is a slightly updated one than the one you have. And the way I was thinking very much about how I do this presentation, and it can be very easy to come along and do loads of all the good stuff and show you that, and it's wonderful and look at this. But I've decided to do a presentation on the good, the bad and the ugly today, which is, so I'll start with the good. So some of our top line, this is just to give a snapshot of the kind of work that we're doing and to pick out some things. So in the last year, we've done about 47 proactive press releases, lots of other reactive press work. But that work alone has generated nearly 1,000 separate pieces of coverage with the PR value of over £2 million. We get a huge bang for our buck with our media work, particularly in the current environment where the only news seems to be good news, seems to be negative news, seems to be the only thing that gets on the news at the moment. We are absolutely building relationships all the time. We've got a hugely strong engagement rate of 7.75% across our social media channels. And I said in the report, anything over, that sounds quite low, doesn't it, under 10%?
I was going to say that is really good.
Anything over 5% is exceptional. If this was a commercial company, out of the park. And actually it varies across the platforms. And those platforms are growing and changing. So that's an average across platforms that we're relatively new on, like TikTok, Blue Sky and that. So on some platforms like Instagram, we'll be up closer to 10%. So that is really good. It shows that we're putting out the right information. So there'll be a certain level of, numbers and statistics that we'll bring here that are relevant for members or senior leadership. But we're looking at lots of different stats all the time to tell us, do certain types of communication work? Have they done well with their audiences? Why have people not engaged with this particular type? So we're constantly looking to see where our audiences are at. One of the other things we've done, a good example is the Take the Lead. So we've been doing lots of Take the Lead work, which is hugely important. And we've reached over 1 million people with that work over the last year. Interestingly, when we were doing a lot of the work around the PMP, and people were talking about welcome in the national park, what surprised me was how Take the Lead was an important factor for people to feel welcome in the national park, because lots of groups were saying that actually if you're not used to dogs and you're out walking in the countryside and you've got all these big hairy hounds bounding at you, completely out of control, it's terrifying. And I had never, I was thinking of dog behaviour in terms of wildlife and livestock. I'd never thought of it in that way. So it's a really important thing that we continue to do. So that's just another example. We've also had some great pieces of work around our Voices programme, which is all about using our platforms. It's not just us speaking, but it's letting lots of other people speak. So we have some great videos on our YouTube channel. We have an excellent one by the Chichester Boys Club, another by Muslim Hikers. So they're definitely worth checking out. And then I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about an area that members don't really get to talk a lot about, which is about our interpretation. So when people think about our interpretation, they tend to think of it as, panels that you might see when you're out and about. But I wanted to just show some examples over the last year of what interpretation has contributed. So on the top left, Nature and Art, that is a piece of work that we did with Greening Arundel, which is all about the work that they're doing down there at a local community group. The bit in the middle, Pen Hill, these are interactive panels at a restored chalk grassland site. So when people are there, they can scan that and find out all about our nature recovery work, all about chalk grassland, what we're doing, what it is, what they can do to help. On the right-hand side there is the stories. This is bringing together all the different digital trails across Seven Sisters, including the archaeological trail, the audio trail for those visual impairments, and also the We Hear You Now, the absolutely fantastic trail by Alina Azadeh and the other writers. Bottom right, the absolutely fantastic, if you haven't been, interpretation at Singleton Station as part of the new part of the Centurion Way. I went along as a punter, a secret shopper on Sunday, myself, to see how people were interacting, and it was absolutely fantastic. Everybody loving the station there at Singleton and the atmosphere that it's evoked, but it really shows what an added layer interpretation can bring. In the middle, over on the far left, the chalk grassland, that is an amazing piece of work that we're doing. So we're very lucky that our interpretation and place officer, Emily, is also a skilled wildlife artist. So she's done all the illustrations. That is a cab card that we've done with the nature recovery team and the farming team that they can take out so farmers can have in their cab. So when they are out looking at chalk grassland, they know what good chalk grassland looks like. So it's all these small things that add up to look at the wider piece of work. And then bottom left, you've got a piece of temporary interpretation at one of the OVCA projects, which is the Cliff Gardens project in Seaford, which has been really widely well received by the public there, but has had a few detractors, local detractors who don't like the idea of a community garden or climate action in Seaford, so for some reason. So, yeah, it's just some examples all the time of what you can do. And then the middle one is from Seven Sisters. This is, we helped them to set up some photo posts. So it's a way to kind of guide visitors to take photographs from safe angles. Not near the, get some good photographs, but not near the cliff edge. But it also is, they're going to be loaded up. So it actually gives the team at Seven Sisters who are managing the land for nature recovery a log over time of the changing landscape, so that it's one of the ways that we'll be able to assess how the landscape is doing there. So just to kind of a bit of an overview of the varied ways in which our kind of comms and engagement work can help. It wouldn't be me without saying something about dark skies, which of course is absolutely fabulous. So my team managed the dark skies work, and in the last year we have done 14 events, everything from bat walks to large-scale stargazing events in places like Brighton and Alice Holt. We've talked to about 2,300 people in person, but reached nearly 250,000 people online. People love dark skies. It's a fantastic first step to people to try and understand landscape, their place in landscape and their connection with it. We've got such positive energy from so many community groups across the national park and astronomy groups who want to be involved in this. And next year is our 10-year anniversary of the International Dark Sky Reserve, so we're going to be having a big celebration then. And in the bottom right, you can see we've turned our hand to podcasting. I'm looking at Vicky because she was the star of that particular episode. So we've been talking to lots of different people, lots of different perspectives of dark skies, everything from stargazing to health and well-being to, connection to nature, but a really fantastic area of work that enables us to engage with whole new audiences. And I think the consultation for the PMP has really shown that popular appeal, and I'm delighted that it's survived and is still in the PMP. So enough of the good. Oh no, I've got one more good actually. This is a change we're making. We've had a change in leadership over the last few years, both in terms of members of Vanessa taking the helm and Mark now as deputy chair and Sean on a new SLT. And that is allowing us to be braver and more outward with our voice, which is a fantastic thing from my point of view. So earlier this year, you will have seen that we released the water report, so working really closely with the fantastic cap. Sorry about that. See, I'm always told I'm talking too much, so clearly it's true. But this is a really good example whereby we had factual information, we were able to go out, but for the first time ever, we were, I guess, given permission to go out proactively with not such a good news story. Because normally it's the pretty pictures, it's the good things, it's the successes. But now we were able to go out with a report that basically said our water is really in trouble. But we went out and said that while also saying, and this is why it's going to be part of our new PMP, and this is what we're going to do about it together, and this is what you need to do. So again, it's that ladder of stewardship joining up action with information. So Sean was on the news, down at a very breezy Seven Sisters, if I remember. And it was the week before the Campaign for National Parks report came out. For me, it's really important that we're not following the story, we are leading the story. So as a national park, we should be telling our own story, not waiting for somebody else to tell it for us. But really positively received by Campaign for National Parks, and they put out their report the week after, and then Sean was invited to write a blog for their website about it, which is great. Which is that we are being seen as people to come and talk to about water. Now, I did have, following on from that, a wonderful video to show you, but the sound is not working, I'm afraid. So we're going to send you a link to this, but it links it back again to what we were talking about, pounds for ponds. It's that continuing arc of what we're doing around water. So yesterday, that is Sylvia from Seven Sisters Country Park, and the lovely Jan, our biodiversity officer, were interviewed by the BBC, by BBC Southeast, so reaching an audience of 500,000 people at 6:30 yesterday evening, talking all about pounds for ponds and the importance of water in the landscape. It's a really lovely piece. It's only about 2.5 minutes, but I'm really sorry the sound is not working. So I'm going to get Jeff to send that out to you all today. But a really good example of, we've gone from this is the problem, we're in trouble, to being the authoritative voice, to going on and talking positively about what we're doing. And putting that hope at the end. I think it's really important that we're giving hope about what can happen, even if we can't solve it all by ourselves. Oh, it's going to play without sound, so I'm going to go past it. On to the bad. So it's really important to talk about when things aren't easy. So have any of you, I'm sure some of you, have come across hashtag Seven Sisters Hike over the summer? So this was a viral phenomenon, that basically a hashtag of an apparent hike that was encouraging people fantastically to come by public transport to Seaford Station. That's Seaford Station on the right. As you can see, it was a little crowded because everybody came at once. To then walk down up to Seaford Head and to cross the mouth of the river Cookmere. And as you can see on the left, that's a not so bad example, but I would, if it will play, I would like to play this one. So that is scary. And that is people who were guided. I mean, it looks great fun, but it is quite dangerous. It's people who were guided by information out there that went absolutely viral on thousands of different accounts, and people were nearly swept away to sea. There could have been serious, serious loss of life. So there is an issue there that not only was it a terrible thing for the national park, but lots of people are coming to the national park for the very first time, and that's their experience. A lack of safety, a lack of care, a lack of information, because, as we all know now, when things are online, people tend to believe them. It was a very difficult moment for us and the team at Seven Sisters. They were already dealing with huge crowds, people blocking up the road to Littlington and parking everywhere, and people stopping in the middle of the road and dropping off coachloads of people. So it was a challenging time anyway. But in the old days, this might have been one influencer. You can go to the influencer and correct it. This wasn't one influencer. This was across thousands and thousands of accounts. How do you stop something when literally hundreds of thousands of people are following it and coming? But also, these are lots of groups coming from London. They're exactly the audience we do want to come, but we want them to come and have a good experience. And for me, that was the worst thing, is that someone could have been really seriously ill. So the challenge for us is, how do we make sure that we can manage this better in the future, better for the national park and better for the people who want to come and experience it? Because I don't want anybody going home with that, it's fun laughing, but somebody could very easily have lost their life. People were wading in chest-high water, carrying their bags over their heads. There was children coming across the river there. It was a terrifying experience, I'm sure, for them, for people watching, and certainly for the staff down there. So Claire Onslow, who leads the team down in Seven Sisters, and I have got joint planning sessions in place, and we're going to be looking at specifically how do we manage around the safety of the river down there, but also more widely, how do we control, because we've no idea what the next trend might be. It could be anything. It might not be this. You can prepare for this, and then it can be something completely different to do with the cliffs or something else. So just worth pointing out that we've got to be adaptable, and we don't always get it right first time. What we need to do is make sure that before the next season comes at Seven Sisters, that we are ready and have the right resource in place. And then the ugly, the very, very ugly. It is not a nice external environment out there at the moment. I mean, we all talk about how the world has become quite a lot more right-wing than it used to be. That has a huge effect on our communications and engagement. So I just want to use the example that a lot of you would have heard, was this is the We Hear You Now trail at Seven Sisters Country Park, and this time last year. So it is a trail of 13 plaques of female writers from black and minority ethnic backgrounds, amazing stories of the landscape, and someone came along and vandalised and took all the plaques down. At the same time, there was a hostel in Eastbourne had been attacked, I believe, and there was lots of other negative things going on. So we had to figure out how we would deal with this publicly. It was really important that we responded publicly with an unequivocal response that we did not find it acceptable. But I was also mindful of what response that impact would have on people on the ground. We had other vulnerable groups at Seven Sisters, visiting Seven Sisters, getting health and wellbeing sessions down there. So we had young unaccompanied asylum seekers who'd already had their hostel attacked. So we were also mindful as well that we did not want to bring more attacks or issues on top of people who were visiting from those communities. So we worked really closely with the police on the message. We were very clear, and we wanted to come out as a police investigation and the fact that it was a crime. But I wanted to point out, because it was also it was one of those things where you had to take your time to get it right, and you have to think of the consequences. It's very easy to sit here in an office in Midhurst and decide, well, we'll just put out this statement. It has to be one that's going to do what we needed to and make sure that people are safe. But we had over 200 pieces of media coverage. We also had lots of very nasty phone calls from right-wing journalists accusing us of why are we investing in black-only stories in the first place. We had abuse on our social media channels, which we monitor 7 days a week at weekends. So just being mindful that that ugliness can come into people's day-to-day working life here at the National Park. But for me, it was a good result in the end, because the writers felt supported by our response and the seriousness which we gave to the response. And also, we took a very public stand that this wasn't going to be acceptable. But just a really, just a good example of not all comms is positive, and we can come in here and talk to members about all the positive stuff. There's also lots of unseen things. I was thinking when I put a blank slide in here, there is lots of reactive press work that we do that you never find out about because it doesn't get in the press. So I can say offhand, in the last 2 weeks, we've dealt with 6 quite complicated stories, quite a few planning, some not, to work to make sure that the correct information is out there and that it doesn't blow into something that isn't actually accurate. Because unfortunately, once something gets into the public domain, it doesn't matter whether it's true or not, it's out there, isn't it? So lots of work behind the scenes on the reactive as well. And then I wanted to finish a bit more positively, which is talking about what's next. So what's next with comms and engagement? So firstly, following on from the conversation this morning, it's PMP. So it's completing that and finishing it, but also working on lots of fantastic ways to bring that to life for the public in print, in digital versions, graphically. So we're working at that at the moment. We're just begun the process of developing a new comms and engagement strategy, which will help deliver a 5-year one, help deliver on the partnership management plan. So that will be coming back before P&R committee and then before members at the same timeline as the corporate plan. Richard, that's February and March, isn't it? February to P&R and then March. So lots of exciting work on that. Our Dark Skies 10th anniversary is happening, a really big Dark Skies festival in February. We would love your organisations and contacts to be involved. We'd love you guys to be involved. If you can help spread it, it really is a joyful experience coming to some of our Dark Skies events, whether that's down in, someone else's event down in Portsmouth Dockyard or, standing on Brighton Seafront, talking to people about stars. It really is it reminds you why you work for a national park. So I would definitely recommend to come along. And then I wanted to mention something like Project Base for Downs to the Sea. We're working on a really, really fun animation which is all about dogs and water. Interestingly, about things like ponds, is how do you make it fun to talk about tick and flea treatment? We're managing. So, watch this space. We're working on it with a really small little creative agency at the moment, but that's just another way that we can kind of add value to the work that Natasha and other projects are doing across the National Park. And then finally, what can members do? Lots. Be champions for us. follow us on social media, spread the word, tell us about, link us up with people who, might want to do dark skies events or other things. Open doors for us so we can talk about that key messaging. Make connections, shape opinions. You've got your own social media channels, your own networks, your own contacts. You're all, between you, extremely well connected. So help us to get that messaging out there about the PMP and our other work. And help us to drive change by doing that. Don't underestimate the power that you have through your own networks and contacts. And that's really useful to help us to push that message out further. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you so much. Again, that's another loads and loads of information. And I really, really appreciate you coming and giving that to us. Just before I open it up to everybody, I just want to reflect on, well, there's just loads, and I'll do a bit later on, but that piece that happened last summer with We Hear You Now, the way that you and the team handled that was so perfect, really, really well handled. And the writers, it was so hard because it just felt, it's really personal, it's really hurt, but the way you held them and they felt really supported, and by the end they felt that was the right approach, and working with the police and everything like that was really, really important. So it was just like amazing work there. But I'll open it out to everybody else to ask any questions they'd like. Andrew, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Indeed, a lot of information, Ruth, and thank you very much. But Seven Sisters, we are, to an extent, and it seems an increasing extent, beginning to be a victim of our own success, because not just today, but on other occasions we've heard how, as a result of the fact that we have made the place so good to visit and made a lot of it, a lot more people are going there. I remember 20 plus years ago, as a member of the South Downs Joint Committee, a meeting where there was serious discussion how we had to divert people away from the then honeypots, which are the now honeypots, and the result of them only going to a relatively small number of places. Is it something we should be giving proper consideration to try to not necessarily make more honeypots, but try to sell other parts of the national park a little bit more strongly than we are?
Yeah, Ruth.
Thanks, Andrew. It's a really, really good question. So with a number of aspects to the answer, the first is that it's not... extra people aren't coming more to Seven Sisters because of the facilities. The whole Heritage Coast is effectively under siege during the summer, the whole way along. So Burling Gap this year has stopped coaches coming because they can't cope with it. People are then driving, which is making it worse in a way. Yesterday, I was at a meeting at Seaford Head with Seaford Town Council, and they are having massive issues with Seaford Head because it doesn't have toilets, it doesn't have anything, so it's being used as a toilet, and people are coming down and crossing, the parking, the coaches. So it's a widespread issue, but particularly around the whole of the Heritage Coast. I mean, interestingly, probably in particular because it is accessible by public transport as well. It's on that main bus route from Brighton to Eastbourne, so it's a good thing in one way, but less so in the other. But we are working on a number of different strands. So one of the things that Claire is looking at with other partners is a visitor management plan for the whole Heritage Coast. There would be no point doing one for Seven Sisters. The other thing is that, of course, we've got the Super National Nature Reserve, and how we talk about Seven Sisters is going to be changing. So it's not going to be one thing that's going to fix it. It's lots of things. We have got a joint session between my team and Claire's team coming in, and we're going to be looking at revamping website, social media. We've got a new digital and social media officer starting in my team in November. So there's going to be lots of different facets, Andrew. But yeah, we're absolutely looking at that. And we do a lot of promotion and trying to disperse people. The problem is, when you've got 100,000 people posting, look at this, the best view in the world, it's tricky. And we're not the only ones. So, in Erie National Park, they have the same thing. People come to see the mountain. And for us, they come to see the view of the cliffs. But yeah, lots of work in train, Andrew.
I just want to back Ruth up on that, because it's really important to understand that this isn't about what we've done on the site. This is a result of quite a few factors all coming into play. So you've got the thing that post-COVID, a lot of people discovered going to the countryside. And on top of that, we've suddenly got this, it's almost like a generational discovery of walking and landscape that's happening, and the wonderful thing that's happening with Gen Z at the moment, where they really, really care about their health and well-being and want to get out. And there's lots and lots of different groups that use the online space as a community building space that gather people together and help and guide them out into different areas of the countryside. And what we've got is like, you've got these initial hotspots around the country where you've got a perfect alignment of really good transport links. Very close to London we are. Fantastic bus service that runs every 10 minutes. I mean, it's amazing. And you can walk from a train station to a train station. And it's just a perfect storm of people wanting to come down. And then you post a hashtag and it just goes viral. And these things you can't sort of predict. I was in a meeting recently where they showed what's happening at Mam Tor. I don't know if you were there, Sean, but they were showing like the Strava data. And it was really, really hot. There was loads of people going, but it was like loads of people going at 4 a.m., wasn't it? Because they want to take the sunrise photograph. So it's not from us. I mean, we're actually really well prepared, because I've done the walk a couple of times recently. I did it last week, and it was really busy again. And we've put in all those toilets. Our facilities are catering for these people. We're not asking for them to come down. We're actually saying come at different times of year. But then you get to Berlin Gap, and there's literally still 3 ladies' toilets. It's just a nightmare. But we're not, Berlin Gap, National Trust and us are saying on our social media, it's going to be busy, perhaps come, different times of the year or a different day or something like this. But every business in the area is saying come. I'm sitting in meetings with my local parish councillors who own a business in the valley, moaning, and then they go, but your business is saying come down, come and have a walk and everything. So it's not, it's everybody encouraging these things. So it's not easy.
No, and I think another aspect as well is we're trying to geographically disperse people, but it is tricky. If you've got no bus service in the Meon Valley or in other parts, it's tricky. But the other thing we're trying to do is disperse them across the year. So doing that, dark skies is a fantastic way. It's great for businesses because it's when people normally don't come between October and February. So we're really trying to encourage that. We're trying to work with Chris Hannon to revive our dark skies welcome so that people can make money in those shoulder months, but you're also dispersing people. And then everybody's experience is better, because it was interesting, there was we were tagged, but it wasn't actually us, it was Berlin Gap, where people were saying, when you decide to come from London, and everybody else has come too, and queuing, was it like 45 minutes for a toilet in Berlin Gap? And I was looking at it going, and it wasn't us, it was actually Berlin Gap rather than Seven Sisters. But yeah, so we want people to have a good experience. It's not just about where we want numbers to go. We don't want people to have bad experiences of the national park. So yeah, dark skies, again, a great way to disperse people across the year rather than just across the space.
Mm-hmm. Sean, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I'll be brief. I mean, I think it has been very difficult, but I think it's an incredible opportunity. What I think is interesting is that before we had Seven Sisters, this was obviously other people's problem, and now it's our problem. We're learning about it, and we're going to have to become really good at it. We're not the first people to deal with this. I mean, there are people we can learn from. Stonehenge, there are places I visited in the summer holidays, even in Europe, that are managing far greater numbers in a really controlled way. So we have to become good at it, and we're going to need to invest in it. And I think it would be great if we could have similar numbers well managed at other parts of the park. But Seven Sisters, I think, is a real opportunity for us to learn. So I think that's the sort of approach that we're going to take. There's a whole comms piece, but I think there's also an infrastructure piece, and there's an opportunity, there's a need for us, I think, again, to lead in this space in that area, because we're not the only ones, but nobody seems to be stepping forward and saying, right, I'm going to coordinate it. And that's another thing I think we need to do, because the one common theme that goes through the whole of that heritage coast is that it's all national park. So we think we've got a role to play there that we haven't had to do before. So it's new and we're learning, but I think it's overall a really great opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. And Ruth, I just wanted just to say again, thanks. So 3.23, all the briefings that you give staff and members and everything, I just want to thank you for that and all the support you've given me. And also just on digital engagement, really pleased to see that you know, those figures, the percentage of engagement, that is really good figures. So huge well done to that. And the relationship building, obviously, is really key. And did you want to say something else?
I just want to add my thanks to Ruth and the comms team for just being an amazing resource for the authority, but also to help us manage all the risks. There are so many risks that you help us manage every week, every day, but also all the visits you coordinate and all the sort of engagement that you do. I never have to hesitate when I'm talking to someone and say, yeah, come and visit us, because I know you'll back me up. I know you sort of smile, but you do, and you always deliver, and they go away delighted, and that really does a huge amount of good for the park and for our reputation. So thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ruth. Oh, we actually, do we have to? We've got a recommendation to receive and consider the update. So can I see a show of hands, please? Thank you all so much. And I'm going to give us all a break now. So can we come back? Should we come back at 35 past? Is that enough? Is that okay, everybody?
Yeah, stretch our legs.
I'm going to ask James Winkworth, our director on this, to cover this. Thank you, James.
Thank you, Vanessa. I'm sure many members are perhaps too familiar with devolution and local government reorganisation, but in case there are some that haven't been following the Chronicle and the Argus, I thought I'd start with a very brief explainer in the sense that devolution is, of course, the plan to elect new mayors in Hampshire and Sussex in May next year, and to have new authorities which will have devolved powers and funding from government. And local government reorganisation is the restructuring of the two-tier system we have in Sussex and Hampshire, replacing it with a number of unitary authorities. And you've got a paper in front of you which is really just asking you to endorse our current approach to these issues, which will have substantive impacts on the national park. With devolution, really our key aim and objective is to have a strong voice for national parks at the new mayoral authority table. And it's really important that that is protected landscapes, not just national parks. We're doing this on behalf of our wider family. And just to give you a flavour of how significant we are in the counties, it's 38% of Hampshire and 58% of Sussex. Don't get competitive, Andrew. But yeah, the key thing there really is that what we really want to make sure is that national parks are considered in the key decisions made by the new mayoral authorities, particularly within things like the spatial development strategy, for example, but also in terms of the local economic growth plan and other things that they'll be taking key critical decisions on. And in order to kind of further that, we've agreed a number of key principles which we're working closely with on the New Forest, and they're in the paper in front of you. And to help support those, we are currently undertaking a lot of good engagement across both Sussex and Hampshire. In Sussex, we've been invited onto the Informal Partnership Board, which means we'll have a key role influencing the decisions leading up to the mayoral authority elections next year. In Hampshire, we're not currently in the same position, but we're working with the New Forest National Park Authority currently on a letter that will be asking the CEOs of the 4 unitaries to make it the same in that county too. In terms of local government reorganisation, I think it's important to recognise there's really strong feelings around this. It's a really complex and important topic for many in both Hampshire and Sussex. And it's also very dynamic, and I'm sure there may be corrections or additions to the paper in terms of how I've laid out the current discussions and proposals. In essence, none of those affect the national park in a way that I think would justify us taking a position. So the proposal put forward into the paper is very much for us to stay neutral in those discussions and let that be for others. I think what our focus is on being is a really key, reliable and constructive partner who will work with all of those new unitaries, whatever their formation. And then the other thing is really just monitoring the risks and opportunities. There are both huge opportunities and risks associated with that restructure. And we're going to be monitoring that closely. It's going to be taking place over a series of years. And we've got a key staffing group that covers Laura's Directorate, Tim's, and my own, considering those factors and making sure that we can, manage the risks but take best advantage of the opportunities. And then just a couple of additions to the paper. One is to note that we didn't reference the local growth strategy, which is going to be critical to consider the national park within, and that should really be included in our key ask, that's factored in. And we know in the South Downs that actually the green economy is growing at 8% in comparison to 0.4 in the national. So actually that's a real benefit and opportunity that we can add. And then the other thing is just to say that we've had the first informal partnership board meeting, which Vanessa attended in Sussex. And so I thought it might be worth just covering what was discussed there before we come to questions.
Yeah, thank you, James. Yeah, so I attended the first meeting of the informal partnership board for Sussex last Friday. The other attendees there was a representative from East Sussex District Councils, West Sussex District Councils, the Police and Crime Commissioner, someone from the FE community and the HE community. Who else was there? There was the leaders and the chief execs of West Sussex, East Sussex, and Brighton and Hove. So it was a fairly small group. We were spread across 3 tables. But what was exciting to me, what I felt really confident going away from that meeting, is they've put in place an interim chief officer already who has loads of experience of having done this before. He was involved in setting up the West Midlands Mayoralty in 2015, but the East Midlands Mayoralty, and has just finished off at Hull and East Yorkshire. And in each case, he'd been brought in at different times, and the place where they'd got him in early in East Midlands, he really said that is the model to follow. And it was very much a case of, we need to get on with all the work, the strategy work now, so that when the mayor gets elected in May and takes office on the 11th of May, they've got a body of work to work with, because the way that things have where they've achieved good results is by getting ahead on these sort of things. So I felt really confident in that person to lead this kind of transition work. Most of that day was spent was the overall kind of arching strategy, and they called it the prosperity strategy for the area. What is going to be the USP for Sussex? And something that was brought up is in the East Midlands, they've got this project called Step Fusion, which they're very excited about, that they're going to be generating energy. I think it's fission actually, but anyway, they call it Step Fusion. And what is that going to look like in Sussex? What is that going to be? And underneath this prosperity strategy is going to sit the local growth plan that James mentioned, and also the spatial development plan. I think my main takeaway was that the leaders were very engaged, very energised, feeling very confident. They'd been to see the new minister, Miata Fambula, earlier that week, and she was very keen to really get them driving and very supportive to them. And I think things are going to happen at pace now. They're going to be expanding out and getting more people involved on the stakeholder groups to start really working at these plans. But I think I have to say that the work that we did at the beginning of the year, that James and Sean and myself have done, like meeting these leaders and really putting ourselves in their faces to say, don't forget about us protected landscapes, has paid off, especially in Sussex, because we were there at the table. And when I mentioned, protected landscapes cover 58% of Sussex, do you realise that? That was actually quite new to them. So, yeah, we need to be telling this story. But also, what we can be doing for the economy, what we can be doing for the area, and our role that we can play in this. So it was an exciting meeting, and I left feeling really confident and really excited about Sussex. So I don't know, hope Hampshire, we need that for Hampshire. Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to open it up for questions to James from anybody.
It's not a question, it's just brief, because I just want to say this, because my own personal view about the current episode of reorganisation and devolution is amazement at how few people have stood up and said, this is absolutely balmy and is bound to be a complete waste of money. Nevertheless, since it appears to be happening, I couldn't agree more with James's recommendation in what is in fact paragraph 6.5, and 6.6 is just really supplementary to that, that as a member of this authority and as this authority as a whole is concerned, it clearly is the right stance for us to remain neutral and try and make the best of it we can with whatever new authorities get inflicted upon Sussex and Hampshire. So that's my position.
No, because we've already worked with 15 local authorities, don't we?
Oh,
so,
we have no difficulty working with local authorities. We'll work with the new ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Stephen, and then John.
It's maybe a bit of a follow-on, really. It's more a question of principle. Because like Alan, I've seen these changes over many decades, and they're always sold as the sort of panacea. Can someone just tell me in 30 seconds, in words of one syllable, how this musical chairs will benefit a single tree or river or pond or deer or bat or person for that matter in the national park?
James.
I think if we use this right, Stephen, there are opportunities. Obviously, within devolution, there's devolved decision-making, and there also may be additional or redirected funding, perhaps I should say. And if we can get the environment in the local growth plan and in the Mayor's vision as a key deliverable for what he wants to do for his constituents, then we will have opportunities flowing through from that. And, sorry, forgive me, thank you. And the other thing probably that's worth saying, because I didn't in my introduction, is we're not just suggesting we should be there because these decisions affect us, but actually because we've got a lot to offer. You know, in terms of that green economy point, in respect of it being a fast and growing aspect in comparison to the national economy, in balancing development with nature-based solutions where we've got huge credibility, in inputting in terms of rural planning issues, because of course both counties are majority rural areas and there's likely to be an urban skew at those mayoral authority boards. So we have a lot to offer. This isn't just please consider us, this is we can add value and strengthen your delivery. So that's the other point to mention, I think, as well as the opportunities.
Thanks, James. So I've got John and then Janet.
Quick question for James, actually. James, do we have a short-term strategy to get Hampshire onto the same level that you've got Sussex at the moment? Thank you.
There is. So, John, we're currently working on a letter with the New Forest, and actually we've spoken with the team who are managing this at Hampshire County Council, and they're working with all of the district and boroughs. And in essence, they have a number of policy streams which feed into something called a portfolio board, and that portfolio board currently has representatives from the current unitaries and 2 elected representatives from the district and boroughs. And our case is that we should have at least 1 seat there for protected landscapes, and that letter is almost finished with the New Forest, and once done, I hope within this week or next week, we'll be sending that to all the CEOs to ask for that place. We think they'll say yes. The suggestions and discussions we had to date is that they would favour that. I think it's just a matter of asking for it.
Great, thank you. Janet.
Chairman, a very quick one. I just wanted to get some brownie points, really, because I think it is very important that the South Downs was involved in the meeting that you went to last week, and I have to say that I was one that made sure that the leader of my council at West Sussex actually did make sure that South Downs was included, so I'm glad to hear you were.
Good, thank you. No, Paul was on good form, thank you. Thanks, Janet. Melanie. And Andrew.
Thank you. I'd just like to really endorse the key principles in paragraph 4.2 and also the additional principle in 4.3 that you've put forward, James. I think these are absolutely spot on. Just a question, because a couple of times we've mentioned the green economy as being a future boost, if you like, to our local economy, and whether it's worth adding that in as an additional one where we wouldn't necessarily lead, but we feel like we've got a lot we could contribute in terms of the green careers work that we've now got in the PMP, apprenticeships, placements, engagement of youngsters. We're developing that pipeline of future employees. So that's just a question, really. I'm not going to die in a ditch over it. But.
Mm-hmm. I think we'd want to include that, Melanie, and sorry, it's something I'd meant to outline in my additions, was that was a bit of an oversight, and following Vanessa's meeting, we realised that should be in here too, so that will go in.
Mm-hmm. Great. Andrew, did you have your hand up? And then Antonia.
Yes, I was going to ask a question similar to John Hyland's, which James has answered with regard to making sure we get the same, or there is the same representation at the table in Hampshire on behalf not only of ourselves but also the New Forest. But are there other protected landscapes in Hampshire And I think that's important to emphasise that we are acting on behalf of the protected landscapes. But the other thing is regarding para 4.2 and the second bullet point, non-constituent with voting rights in the mayoral authority. Current mayoral authorities, there is, and I've been helped by Alan here, I believe there is one which has a national park in it. The North York Moors is in the Middlesbrough one. Is there a situation there we can home in on which would either help or hinder us in our chances to be on a non-constituent member?
We'd be the first, Andrew, in terms of non-constituent membership. In essence, the mayor has constituent members from the unitaries, and then they collectively can elect new non-constituent members. So I think it's our case for the making. There's certainly learning we can take from national parks that have already gone through this process, and talking about the growth strategy. Northumberland has done great work in terms of getting the environment embedded at the heart of that, and we've got to catch up with Tony coming up so we can learn how they've done that. But no, on your non-constituent point, that's ours for the making, our case for the making. I think we do have a unique opportunity here, given that our national park is quite different from others in terms of being in the southeast, surrounded by urban areas. So I think there's a strong case we can make. I just wanted to also come back to your point on protected landscapes. So we've got the endorsement of the protected landscapes in Sussex to represent them, and we are going through a process of feeding back to them after Vanessa attends the meeting, and also ensuring we're getting their input on the agenda so we can play that important role, and they're very grateful for it, given they have much more scant resource and as a result time. We're trying to do the same in Hampshire. We're just getting around them at the moment. So we've met with Cranbourne and Chase, and going to be meeting with the others as well before hopefully we get that position.
Great. Antonia.
Yes, just building on what Andrew said, and also Vanessa earlier, the portfolio board in Hampshire and the importance for this authority to be represented there. I mean, it would perhaps be helpful for you to hear a strong message from this room that we feel that not just the New Forest, but also us as well, should be represented on the portfolio board, because if it's alternating with the New Forest and we're having to represent the other protected landscapes, I think you risk being out of the information flow at what, as Vanessa has said, is a really important time ahead of the election of the mayor. So perhaps, you could take it away that we really think it should be us and a New Forest, not just one of the two of them on the portfolio board.
That's really helpful.
I'd said at least one, because actually I think we're going to be asking for two positions. In truth, that ask has come strongly from the New Forest, who feel that they have slightly different challenges and therefore they want to be represented alongside us. I think we also need to do our best to speak with one voice aside from that, because obviously when a mayor's looking at who they might work with, they want to be dealing with people who can represent singularly. And so where possible, I think we need to do that, although I take your point and the letter is likely to ask for two places. We'll have to see what we get.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to... Laura.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say something to Stephen's point about what's this going to do for the badgers and the beavers. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the LNRSs are going to play a really important part here. Natural England, who have got reduced resources at the moment, have a priority to ensure that once they're developed and confirmed and in place, that they are actually delivered. So they're going to receive quite a lot of focus from them. And I imagine that we can support that too. We're very much involved in the development of these. Claire Kerr is leading a programme of work to kind of review and get back to them in terms of the consultation. So I think they'll probably be a really useful tool.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add? No. Okay, so we've got the recommendations in front of you, but we need to amend recommendation 2, where it says endorse the guiding principles outlined in section 4. We need to add in the local growth plan and the green economy as part of that. So I just want to see if I would ask someone to be a proposer and a seconder to add that into that. Thank you, Melanie and Andrew. And then see a show of hands for that amended recommendation. So if everyone could, if you want to, that is. Yeah, that's great. Okay, great. So that amendment is done. And now I'd like to see a show of hands for all the recommendations. That includes that lovely amended one that you just agreed to. Thank you all so much. Brilliant. Thank you. Great. All right, so moving on to item 12 now, which is an amendment to the standing orders on conservation covenants. And I'm going to pass over to Richard Sanderford for this.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. So this proposes a delegation in relation to the authority entering into conservation covenants and the appropriate amendment to standing orders to ensure that is carried forward. Back at the end of 2023, the authority, some of you may recall, approved us applying to DEFRA to become a responsible body so that we could enter into conservation covenants, and we received that designation from DEFRA on the 18th of July this year. So we are now in a position to enter into conservation covenants. The report in section 2, it provides some background on what conservation covenant agreements are for those of you who may not be familiar with them. And it covers some of the questions that came up earlier about what they can be used for as well. And then section 3 outlines the proposed delegation, which is to the Director of Planning in consultation with the Director of Landscape and Strategy. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Members. Stephen, well.
I'm going to put my previous scepticism to one side and now be rather more positive. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I'm very pleased indeed to see that the application has finally been granted, and I just look forward to the day, hopefully not too far from now, when we have a sort of signing ceremony for the first of these covenants, with more to follow.
Great. Thanks, Stephen. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add? No? Okay. Well, should we go to the recommendation then? And let's see a show of hands. Thank you all so much. Great. Thank you. So item number 13, budget monitoring for 25-26, the capital programme and budget variation. I'm going to hand over to Craig for this, please. Thanks, Craig.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chair. So today the report presented sets out the capital programme for 2025-26 and associated variations. Just need to bring to the attention the original recommendation from the Policy and Resources Committee was requiring approval at this meeting to agree the use of reserves to fund the variations. However, since the publication of this report, a further review of the capital programme funding has been undertaken, and the results of which does not require the use of reserves to support the delivery of the capital programme, with variations being funded from the DEFRA capital grant instead. So there's a proposed revised recommendation which should read, and I think that's the original recommendation, isn't it? So the proposed recommendation is that the authority is recommended to note the recommendation from Policy and Resources Committee on the 18th of September in relation to the use of reserves as set out in the report is no longer required, and that the variations to the capital programme will be funded through the capital allocation from DEFRA.
Okay. Can I ask a really basic question? So is this whole kind of item then just sort of voided because actually you bought it for that, but now we don't need it, so we're just voting on that we don't need? Sorry, I don't. Yeah. Noting that we don't need to do anything. Yeah. Richard, sorry.
Essentially, yes. But we've proposed a revised recommendation because the report is out there. So for public transparency,
Yes,
it's important to know that the authority has considered the reason why there is a change in recommendation, particularly as it's not a recommendation directly from officers, but from the Policy and Resources Committee as well.
Right, right. Okay, great. Well, I think so ignore that recommendations on the screen. Hold in your mind what, is that it? No. No. What are you doing? Confusing me now. Okay, right, yeah, go on, read it out again. Hold it in your minds. Rich is going to read it out again, and then we're going to vote on it.
So it's the authority is recommended to note the recommendation from the Policy and Resources Committee on the 18th of September in relation to the use of reserves as set out in the report is no longer required, and that the variations to the capital programme will be funded through the capital allocation from DEFRA.
Great. Okay. So can I see a show? Can I see a show of hands at that, please? Amazing. Thank you so much. And item number 14 and 15, you all said you had read, and item 16 we didn't need to do. So I'm finishing the meeting. Oh. Brilliant.